The dark art of mastering. Mastering is challenging to do correctly. There's a steep learning curve for good reason. But is it possible for you to get professional quality mastering out of your projects, straight out of your DAW or your 2-track audio editor, with you knowing little or nothing about mastering? Let's find out. Hey guys, it's Steve from Featherlight Studio, and at this year's NAMM show, this last NAMM show in January, there was a company called Musik Hack that was debuting an updated version of their plugin Master Plan. Now, a Master Plan is a mastering plugin, but what they're trying to do is pretty unique in the industry. They're trying to bring professional quality master tools and results into the hands of the average user, the average home studio user that may know little or maybe even nothing about mastering. Now, that's a pretty tall order. There's a lot of really impressive mastering plugins already out there. Isotope Ozone, and FabFilter, Universal Audio, Waves, Slate Digital, all have really powerful and really in-depth and capable mastering tools. But those tools come with a pretty significant learning curve. And for good reason. Mastering's hard. It always has been. Some people devote their entire careers just to that art. So is it really possible to bring truly professional results into the masses, into the hands of people that maybe know little or nothing about it whatsoever? Well, the guys at Musik Hack sent over a copy of it so that we could review this and give our honest opinions about how this stacks up against all that other software, because we use a lot of that other software right here in the studio. And is it really possible to bring completely professional results to the average user that knows little or maybe nothing about mastering? Let's dive in and find out. The installation of Master Plan is very straightforward. There are no authentication managers or download managers or media hubs to go through. It's a simple online installation process, and once it's completed, it basically shows up as any other VST3 or AAX or AU compatible plugin. Mastering can be a challenge even under ideal song circumstances with a great mix. For mixes that are more challenging, it can be quite a learning curve, and there's a lot involved. So the real question here is it possible to really get truly professional results with little or no background in mastering? In this example, we're working directly out of our DAW, and we're going to place Master Plan directly on our master bus. The guys at Musik Hack suggest that you remove all the other plugins on your master bus so that you can hear really what the plugin's doing. And the first thing you'll notice when you open it is the resizable interface, especially if you're working on laptops and then you're working on full-size screens, if you're working in 4K versus 1080p, whatever. It's resizable to a lot of different sizes. That's really a breath of fresh air here. If you click the little cog here, it takes you to the settings window. You can change the interface color from black to white and a couple of other settings we'll cover here in a minute. So the input and output trim controls here on the plugin are, I think, really useful. And one of the most useful things is if you look carefully at the output trim, you can't exceed a negative value. And I think that's a great start, especially when it comes to incorporating some guardrails in terms of gain staging. I think is a great idea here. Here on the setting page, you can set the things that you most often use. For example, like the plugin's interface color, it can be black or white. You can set the LED color that's illuminated when you click on the buttons or move one of the knobs. And those can also be a variety of different things as well. They can be kind of a rainbow. You got a lot of choices for the LED thing here. If you hover over any of the knobs or buttons in the interface, you'll get a readout of what they do here at the bottom. But if you really don't know anything about mastering, or you know very little, and you just want to bring your existing mixes up to a commercial level and keep them within the guardrails of an acceptable modern LUFS, you simply start dialing up the loud knob and keep your LUFS indicators down here in the white or the green, and it really is just that simple.
It's a love song.
So obviously there's a lot more going on behind the scenes here, but I think this is really where the plugin shines the most, is that it's just an incredibly forgiving clipper maximizer. Anybody who's ever used Waves L1 knows what I'm talking about here. You can push this surprisingly far before it starts to come apart. Now, if you just crank this thing and slam it into the red, yeah, it'll eventually come apart, but it takes a whole lot longer for that to happen than it ever did with things like L1. So if you just need some quick commercial level for your existing mixes, this will definitely and almost instantly do the trick. However, if you have some real troublesome mixes and some real challenges and you want to dive into some more precise control, this plugin is capable of a lot more precision and detail than simply making your mixes louder. In this next example, we're going to be taking a real-world country song that we're going to be mastering here soon, and we're going to be comparing Master Plan against Isotope's Ozone. Now, obviously, this isn't a very fair comparison. Isotope has a lot more sophisticated and very in-depth tools and things, but if Master Plan can hold its own against this, then that speaks pretty highly of the application itself. We've got a basic country song here. It sounds like this.
One drink ain't gonna hurt you. It's a devil's favorite line. If you buy that, you'll have to swallow a lot more than your pride. If you think this drink's the answer, a mystery, you're dead wrong. It'll kill you, but the whiskey lives on. It'll live to see another day where there's always one more round. It lives to show you no remorse when you're 6 feet underground. It'll stand over your grave, making sure you're dead and gone. Unrepentant, the whiskey lives on.
All right, so you get the idea here, and Ozone, we'll start with that first because Ozone has some sort of automation tools. Its mastering assistant will basically analyze your song and then give you a starting point for a mastering template that it believes is a pretty genre-specific starting point for it. So we've already done that, and this is basically what it's given us. And you can see these are pretty sophisticated algorithms, and there's quite a few of them at play here. So really, you have a bit of a learning curve with Ozone, especially if you've never used the plugin before. This is one of our favorites, and it has just some really sophisticated and very specific tools to work on your mixes. And this is really the difference and its starting point. So here's our original, and then this is Ozone.
One drink ain't gonna hurt you. It's a devil's favorite line. If you buy that, you'll have to swallow
Bypassed.
a lot more than your pride. If you think this drink's the answer, a mystery, you're dead wrong. It'll kill you, but the whiskey lives on. It'll live to see another day where there's always one more round. It lives to show you
Bypassed.
no remorse when you're 6 feet underground. It'll stand over your grave, making sure you're dead and gone. Unrepentant, the whiskey lives on.
All right, so as you can hear, Ozone's doing a great job here, and it's expected. This is a fairly complex plugin. It's done a great job of leveling the overall song, adding some nice punch in the lows and some nice detail and width in the highs. But like I said, this is a fairly significant learning curve, and it takes a while to really get a concept and a real talent on using this. This is not a tool you're going to pick up quickly and just immediately start using with any kind of experience, but it does a great job. Ozone's got a great track record. We use it here at the studio, so it's a great sort of starting point as a comparison. So let's see how close we can come to this with Master Plan itself. So in its starting configuration, we'll leave it in basically default, and we'll just start pushing up the loud knob.
One drink ain't gonna hurt you. It's a devil's favorite line. If you buy that, you'll have to swallow a lot more than your pride.
We'll defeat it for a second here because we're really keeping an eye on the LUFS scale here.
It'll kill you, but the whiskey lives on. It'll live to see another day where there's always one more round.
We'll try to keep it into the green here.
No remorse when you're 6 feet under the ground.
We'll add a little bit of high end.
It'll stand over your grave, making sure you're dead and gone. Unrepentant, the whiskey lives on.
A little bit of bottom bump to it.
Still lurking in the shadows and whispering your name.
So that's bypassed. We'll bring it back in.
Stumble, always waiting in the wings. If you kill another bottle.
All right, so as you can hear, with a twist of a few knobs here, we've come pretty close to a plugin that is significantly more comprehensive, with a lot more levels and a lot more detail, but it also has a significantly higher learning curve to go with all of that capability. Like I said, this is not really a fair comparison, but if it can even come close that quickly, then Masterplan here is really doing a pretty good job of taking these kinds of sophisticated audio tools, certainly when it comes to mastering, and putting them into the hands of the average studio user that may not have a mastering background at all.
One drink ain't gonna hurt you.
So I think the Unity button here is really kind of the game changer. A lot of other plugs like Ozone have it as well, and it allows you to audition the changes that you're making to your mix without getting fooled by loudness. And it's easy to get fooled by loudness as well. So this allows you to really hear exactly what's going on with your mix, allow you to really hear clearly the things that you're adding or subtracting or the additional processing without getting carried away with just the fact that it sounds louder so you think it sounds better. The Show Me the EQ section here, the low and high controls, are really a great way of just adding a little bit of sparkle to the top of your mix or adding a little bottom end to your mix without going too far into the weeds. It doesn't let you go too far, before it starts to sound terrible. You can push it to the extremes, of course, but I think it's a great addition for those that don't have a real background in mastering, just to be able to dial up a little bit of brightness, maybe if overall the mix is a little dull, or the same as in reverse, or maybe you need to cut a little bit of lows, maybe it's a bit muddy or it's a little too bright. This is a quick fix for that kind of stuff. The wide button here I thought was really unique. It adds some subtle widths to your tracks and your mixes that might need it, but more importantly, it's mono safe, so it's not throwing stuff wildly out of phase when you're using it.
One drink ain't gonna hurt you. It's a devil's favorite line. If you buy that, you'll have to swallow a lot more than your pride. If you think this drink's the answer, a mystery, you're dead wrong. It'll kill you, but the whiskey lives on.
One of the things I really like, and I thought was kind of a nice touch, was the inclusion of the audition buttons here. The ability to hear what it sounds like on a phone or, on speaker systems that have less highs and less lows, like for the bandpass setting, or just the dim switch, the ability just to audition something at a lower level and then back up to the commercial level without having to change the actual levels in your DAW.
By that, you'll have to swallow a lot more than your pride. If you think this drink's the answer, a mystery, you're dead wrong.
The thick button here basically starts to add a bit of saturation in the low mids category. So this is kind of a problem area for a lot of mixes. And it's usually the opposite is the problem here. But if your mixes sounded a little thin and you need to sort of saturate some of the lows and low mids, this is a great and quick way to do it. I would say use this sparingly simply because it builds up quick.
One drink ain't gonna hurt you. It's a devil's favorite.
So the clean button here is the fix for things that are a little too thick or a little too muddy. This puts some very controlled compression into the low mids area and cleans up what might be a muddy or, kind of tubby sounding or honky sounding mix. So if it's giving you problems in that regard and it still sounds like it's a little muddy, the clean button's a quick way here. And of course, these can be added in incremental amounts. So when you click on the button, you get this drop down slider, and the slider allows you to add or subtract as much of this particular effect that you need.
One drink ain't gonna hurt you. It's a devil's favorite line. If you buy that, you'll have to swallow a lot more than your pride.
The multiband feature here I think is pretty slick. It really simplifies the whole process of using a multiband, and a multiband can be pretty challenging, I think, for a lot of people to really grab a hold of when they're first getting into mastering. And the ability to break it up into just 3 basic bands and, maybe work on just some low end problems or some mid problems or whatever, or just take it out altogether, is a quick and dirty way of kind of tackling a much more complex subject. So I think people are going to get a lot of use out of the multiband. So the smooth feature here is basically adding some really subtle dynamic control, kind of bus compressor-ish control here to your overall mix. It adds a little bit of glue to the whole thing, and it sort of smooths out some really dynamic problems. So if you've got a wildly dynamic mix that needs a little help, this might be a great way to kind of dial in or rein in some of those wild dynamic peaks.
One drink ain't gonna hurt you. It's a devil's favorite.
For digital mixes that have a lot of plugins in a row, and as you start to really compound those in a large project, you can get a real kind of digital, harshness to it. The COM button is supposedly really good at kind of taming that out. And I think this is really just kind of a high mids filter that's put in dynamically, and it does a pretty effective job. I found the tape section pretty interesting, actually. In its default configuration, it's a bit heavy-handed, and it's obviously an emulation of a slower tape speed, 15 or probably 7 IPS, because it really whacks the top end and adds a pretty significant bump on the bottom. But that might be exactly what your production needs. So if overall your production needs a little bit, of mojo, analog mojo on the bottom, a little bump on the bottom, and it needs to roll off some of this harsh high end, this might be perfect for that. And the ability to vary this in degrees obviously is going to be helpful as well. So I would say use sparingly. This is actually probably a pretty useful tool, but you would probably, need to kind of pick and choose when you use it.
One drink ain't gonna hurt you. It's a devil's favorite line. You buy that, you'll have to swallow a lot more than your pride. If you think this drink's the answer, mister, you're dead wrong. It'll kill you, but the whiskey lives on.
So as you can see, the guys at Musik Hack, I think, have done a pretty successful job at their claim, which is bringing professional sounding or nearly professional sounding mastering results to the masses for people who don't know much about mastering. Now, is it going to replace your really sophisticated mastering suites like Ozone or a professional mastering engineer? No, but it's not claiming that it will anyway. It's claiming that it's going to bring radio-ready results within reason to most people's projects with little or no mastering experience. And I think in that regard, it's done a heck of a job. And it really is possible to dial in a pretty impressive sounding radio-ready master for someone who doesn't know a great deal about it. Now, you can dial in some of the other more, sophisticated settings and get behind the plugins and learn more about it as you go. But really, in terms of a plugin that's just dirt simple to operate and provides pretty impressive results, I think Masterplan really delivers something that's unique in the industry, at least in the sense that it really has that balance between simplicity and capability. That's hard to find, I think, in this particular industry. And so in that regard, the guys at Musik Hack have done a pretty impressive job. The thing sounds pretty good if it's used within reason. Hey, if you learned something, or if this has been helpful in any way, please hit the subscription and notification bells. It does help keep the channel going and helps me make more videos like this. Stay safe, be creative, add something creative to the world. I could really use it. We'll catch you guys in the next video.